Hello, I'm Rebecca Carter. I started my publishing life as a publisher's scout, which was working for foreign publishing companies looking for books that were published in English that they might translate. And actually that came out of the fact that as an 18-year-old I'd worked at Shakespeare and Company in bookselling and had been fascinated by books in translation and the relationship between those and English language. So then I became a publisher and actually ended up doing quite a lot of books in translation as well as finding new writers in the English language. And I worked in Random House in both imprints, Chatto and Windus and Harvill and Secker for 15 years. A year and a half ago I became a literary agent. So I'm building a list looking for lots of new debut writers as well as representing some established writers already. As a publisher, you don't get invited to judge prizes because, of course, you're submitting those prizes for those books for those prizes, and you are going to be biased because you're going to want the books that you're publishing to win. So it was really exciting as an agent to be able to judge a prize. It was a first for me, and yeah, very exciting to see work that often prizes are for writers who have a book published. To be doing a prize where this was really new work was extremely exciting, and also work that wasn't just a short story, that was quite a substantial piece of work, and the very incredibly varied ways that people had approached the novella form. It's a really interesting idea for a prize because it actually makes a demand on a writer that they perhaps haven't as a new writer thought about, because they're probably thinking novel or short story. But a novella, I mean, there's lots of arguments about what a novella is and what constitutes a novella, but I think it's a very different thing. It's not a long short story, and it's not really a short novel. It's got to do something very particular of its own, and it's a formal challenge. And that was what I was looking for in judging, people who weren't just sort of expanding a short story and making it a bit longer. I was looking for work that fitted into those kind of... It was interesting, actually. Most people wrote up to the 30,000 word limit, although they could have written shorter. But I was looking for something that really fitted into those 30,000 words, that didn't look like it had just stopped because it had reached 30,000 words or had been stretched to reach it. And that was actually quite kind of rare, and the winner does that very brilliantly. What I really like about this prize, and it comes from sort of having worked in the bookshop when I was 18 and also being interested in translated literature and people writing from all different parts of the world, was that anyone can enter this prize regardless of whether, so long as they write in English, from wherever they're from. So often in the UK, book prizes tend to be limited to people who were born in the UK or reside in the UK. It's even quite hard for American writers to win certain UK book prizes because the constraints are so strict. And so this prize is open to anyone provided they wrote in English. And there were some people, including one of the runners-up, who actually English wasn't her native language. And so reading them blind, it was fascinating to think, where's this person from? What literary influences have they had, trying to kind of guess what country they might be writing from, whether they were, if they were American, perhaps they weren't American, living in America. So that was really, really fascinating, not knowing their age. Really, really interesting. But also, I think, incredibly fair. Because it didn't, the cult of the sort of young novelist in this, you have no idea. It could be somebody in their 70s. I think prizes are becoming more and more important as publishers are taking fewer risks, and as newspapers are kind of shrinking their review space. In a sense, when I was an editor, often you were taking on a literary novel solely with the thought that this might win a prize because it was the only way that it was going to get attention, because it might not get so much kind of support from booksellers, so they're becoming more and more crucial. But at the same time, an awful lot of prizes are starting, and so then when you've got lots of prizes, people tend to kind of concentrate on the big three, the Booker Prize, the Pulitzer Prize, or whatever it is. But what's very good about the Shakespeare and Company Prize is that it's because being the novella, it's actually quite kind of unique among prizes. But in terms of sort of advice to new writers, I think it depends what if you're setting out to be a literary novelist, and what that means. I'm not going to go into kind of explaining, but it's a really tough time. I think that publishers are not. They're judging things on a sort of sales basis when they make a publishing decision. They're much less kind of interested in backing new difficult. I mean, also people doing difficult work. I think you have to think of it as a very, very long game and be patient. It's sort of, don't think that success is going to come immediately. So you have to have a sort of incredible endurance. I think when I'm thinking about taking on writers, I'm not thinking, I'm thinking, do I love the work? But I'm also thinking, is this somebody who is going to be able to kind of carry on writing books? And have they got, I also think, have they got a kind of means of making their living alongside it? Because, you know, so if you're kind of banking on books only making your living, it's going to be tough. And so somebody who's sort of finding a way to do two things, I think, is a good. That's my advice anyway.
Okay.
But read and edit yourself as well, and find people to. I think that's why a lot of people are doing creative writing courses, is to seek other readers and other editors to sort of to work with.